Welcome to The Red Story. Subscribe if you like it because I like it. My husband found theater tickets in my purse while we were at his family having dinner. How stupid you have to be to cheat on the husband you've been married to for less than a year? And even get caught because of theater tickets? Well, that's me. I have a tendency to bring chaos into people's lives. I actually pity the men who dated me. They didn't deserve the hell I brought into their lives. My name is Emily. I'm 25 years old and married to James, who is 35. Our relationship has a complicated story, even if very short. I never really saw myself getting married. I didn't think I was capable of taking any relationship to the aisle. I guess it only happened with James because we dated for 3 months before getting married. He didn't really have the time to see all my bad sides. But as I always do, I managed to find a way for him to see the worst in me. It wasn't intentional to ruin our relationship, but it's something I always end up doing in every single one I have. I grew up in the middle of chaos, so without even noticing, I still bring chaos to people's lives. My parents were never really responsible. While I grew up, they got together and broke up repeatedly, thinking more about themselves than about their kids. In high school, it was usual for my parents to disappear for 2 weeks and come back as if nothing had happened, leaving my older brother, Jack, and me to take care of our other 2 siblings. We had to make sure the bills were paid, feed the kids, take care of them, take them to school, and do every other parenting job that was being neglected in our family. At the time, I thought I could handle the responsibility, but now I see how overloaded Jack and I were. I only consider my siblings as family. I lost contact with my mom years ago, and my dad died when I was 18. We always had financial trouble since my parents weren't stable at anything most of the time. My brother and I had to keep looking for part-time jobs in our neighborhood to support the kids we didn't bring into the world. I never really witnessed healthy relationships and never thought I could have them. My first 2 relationships were terrible. The first somehow managed to be worse than me, and the second, well, I guess I ruined his life a little bit. But then there was James. James is the kind of guy you bring home to meet your parents, although I didn't have decent ones. He was the guy who made me see I didn't have to settle for bad things in my life, and I could actually be happy. Around a year ago, I was working in a close friend's bar. We had known each other since we were kids, and when he opened, he offered me a bartender gig there. I like working there because at least I could manage it with college. It was fun. If any creep harassed me, my boss friend threatened to deal with them. James walked into the bar with his friends on a very busy Friday night. I felt him staring at me the entire night. When he came to the counter to ask for his 3rd Jack and Coke, he complimented me and asked if I could give him my number. At the end of my shift, I played pool with him and his friends. That day was our first kiss, and we pretty much spent the entire week together. He took me to dinner, movies, the park, and so many other romantic dates. I had never dated someone so thoughtful and gentle. He was perfect. I fell in love quickly with James. I imagined my future with him, our wedding, the kids we have. I wanted him in my life so badly. The more time I spent with him, the more I was sure about what I was feeling. By our 3rd month, I was pretty much living with him. I came back home every week for a few days, but I mostly stayed with my boyfriend. On a weekend, James invited me to go on a trip to a cozy cabin in the mountains. It was a beautiful place, quiet and surrounded by nature. We spent the days hiking, exploring the area, and enjoying each other's company. On the 2nd night, after a delicious dinner he had prepared, we sat by the fireplace with a bottle of wine. James seemed a bit nervous, which was unusual for him. He kept fiddling with his glass and glancing at me with a look I couldn't quite understand. He had never looked at me that way. After a few moments of silence, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. My heart started racing as he began talking, even more nervous than me. "Emily," he began, his voice shaking slightly. "These past few months with you have been the happiest of my life. I never imagined I could feel this way about someone, but you showed me what true love is. You're my best friend, my confidant, and the love of my life. I can't imagine my future without you in it." He opened the box to reveal a stunning diamond ring. It was shining in the firelight. Tears welled up in my eyes as he got down on one knee. "Will you marry me?" he asked, his eyes filled with hope and love. I was overwhelmed with emotion. This was everything I had ever dreamed of and more. Without hesitation, I threw my arms around him and whispered, "Yes, James, 1,000 times yes." We spent the rest of the night celebrating our engagement, lost in our own little world. It felt like a fairy tale, and for the first time in my life, I believed that maybe, just maybe, I could have a happy ending. Our wedding planning was nice and easy. James was incredibly supportive, letting me take the reins on most of the decisions. He just wanted me to be happy. We had a small, intimate ceremony with close friends and family. I remember walking down the aisle, my heart pounding with excitement and love. James stood at the altar, looking more handsome than ever, his eyes filled with tears as he watched me approach. Even though we were only together for 3 months, I was sure about my decision. It seemed completely right. James was even more sure than me. We were meant for each other, and both of us thought so. The ceremony was beautiful, filled with laughter and tears of joy. When we exchanged vows, I felt a deep sense of peace and belonging. James was my home, my safe haven. I couldn't wait to start our life together as husband and wife. Our relationship felt like a dream come true. He was the steady rock I had always longed for, a stark contrast to the chaotic relationships of my past. James was dependable, loving, and genuinely cared about my well-being. He brought stability into my life, something I had never experienced before. Our first few months as a married couple were blissful. James was attentive and always made an effort to make me feel special. We enjoyed quiet evenings at home, cooking together and watching movies. Weekends were spent exploring the city, going on hikes, and trying out new restaurants. It was the kind of life I had always imagined but never thought I deserved. But as time went on, I began to feel restless. The predictability of our life together, which initially felt comforting, started to feel stifling. I struggled with my own insecurities and fears, constantly questioning if I was truly happy or just playing a part. James sensed my unease and tried his best to reassure me, but it wasn't under his control. I found myself withdrawing, emotionally distancing myself from James. Our conversations became more superficial, and I could see the confusion and hurt in his eyes. He would ask if everything was okay, and I would plaster on a smile and tell him I was fine. But deep down, I knew I was slipping away from the life we had built together. I started to miss the excitement and unpredictability of my past relationships. It wasn't that I didn't love James, I did deeply, but there was a part of me that craved something more, something that our stable, loving marriage couldn't provide. I didn't know how to manage my need for stability and my desire for excitement together at the same time. Our marriage began to feel like a delicate balance, one that I struggled to maintain. I didn't want to hurt James, but I also couldn't ignore the growing sense of boredom within me. It was a constant internal battle, one that left me feeling guilty and confused. Despite my internal crisis, James remained patient and supportive. He believed in us and was willing to work through any issues we faced. I wish I could be as committed and unwavering as he was, but my own demons kept pulling me in different directions. And that's when John re-entered my life, bringing with him the chaos and excitement I hated but secretly craved. John and I had an intense relationship, similar to a hurricane during our college years. We met in a psychology class and quickly became inseparable. John was an actor crazy about life, the kind of guy who lived on the edge, always looking for the next thrill. He was charming, adventurous, and had a magnetic personality that drew people to him. I was no exception. Our relationship was a roller coaster from the start. John and I had a strong connection, both physically and emotionally, but it was also filled with intense highs and devastating lows. We fought passionately and made up with equal intensity. The drama was addictive, and I found myself constantly on an emotional high, never knowing what to expect next. John brought out a side of me that I hadn't known existed. With him, I felt alive and free, unbound by the constraints of my past. We skipped classes to go on spontaneous road trips, stayed out all night partying, and enjoyed the chaos we created together. But the instability took its toll, and our relationship was far from healthy. It was ironic. How we met in a psychology class, skipped it together frequently, and had the most unhealthy involvement ever. We broke up and got back together countless times. Each time I told myself it was the last, that I deserved better, but I always found my way back to him. It was a toxic cycle, one that I couldn't seem to break. Eventually, the constant fighting and emotional turmoil became too much, and we broke up for good. I hated John. John hated me. He was an alcoholic. I didn't really think it was a big deal, and just thought he was just a jerk. Rehab probably wouldn't fix a jerk. Until I broke up with him, he proceeded to lose his job and have a huge fight with his family 2 days after that. His family made him promise he wouldn't see me again and sent him to rehab. When I met James, I was looking for a fresh start, a way to escape the chaos of my past. He was everything John wasn't: stable, dependable, and loving. I thought I had finally found the peace I was searching for. And for a while I did, but deep down there was a part of me that missed the excitement and unpredictability of my time with John. Even after we broke up, John never fully left my mind. I would occasionally see his posts on social media, wondering what he was up to and if he ever thought about me. I knew reaching out to him would be a mistake, but the curiosity and longing never quite disappeared. I was married to James for 6 months when the thought of John kicked its way into my mind. When he suddenly reappeared in my life, it was like a spark reignited. All the feelings I had buried came rushing back, and I found myself drawn to him once again, unable to resist the pull of our past connection. I reconnected with John purely by chance. It was a rainy afternoon. I was waiting for my coffee at a local cafe when I heard a familiar voice behind me. I turned around, and there he was, just as I remembered. Confident, charming, and with that same mischievous look in his eyes. "Emily, is that you?" he asked, smiling. John, wow, it's been a long time, I replied, my heart pounding in my chest. We exchanged a hug and caught up on the basics of our lives. He mentioned he was working on a play he performed every weekend downtown. He had also recently moved back to the city. I told him about my marriage to James and my job. It didn't take long for our conversations to become frequent. We exchanged numbers, promising to meet up for coffee sometime. What started as innocent catch-ups quickly turned into something more. I found myself looking forward to meeting him again, enjoying the thrill of rekindling our old connection. We texted frequently, but for weeks we didn't even set a date. I guess both of us were scared about actually starting this storm again. I was the one who brought it back. I left work early on a Friday, so I decided to stop by the theater where John's play was on. When I got there, I saw on the schedule that one of the play's sessions was in 15 minutes. The next started half an hour later after the previous one finished, so I have enough time to talk to John later. I would even be able to get in time for dinner at James' parents' house. That was the first time we crossed the line. It was a mix of excitement and guilt. I went backstage to find him after the play. He was surprised and happy to see me. John had a break room for himself. We sat, started talking, and reminiscing about our college days. One thing led to another, and before I knew it, we were kissing passionately. The familiar rush of adrenaline and desire consumed me, and I couldn't bring myself to stop. We only had half an hour, but it was enough for me to fall into the void of John's charms again. I didn't have much time to think about what I was doing. I left running, afraid of being late, and heading for my parents-in-law's house. I got there with a smile on my face as if nothing had happened. My husband opened the door for me. I kissed him, saying hello, and at that moment, I started feeling terrible. I was numb until I touched James. Then I felt like a bullet had hit me. I had just cheated on my husband with my deadbeat boyfriend. I said hello to his family, thinking if I play it cool, they'll be fine. James didn't seem to notice I was a little off, which made me relieved and allowed me to relax during dinner. I really liked his family. We got along so well. His parents and brother were nice to me from the moment I met them. I thought they'd be hesitant about our wedding because it was kind of soon in our relationship to tie the knot. But against what I expected, they were really happy and took me as part of the family. It was nice being around a functional family, definitely different from mine. I could count on them more than I did on my parents. My siblings are all grown now and doing their own thing, so I didn't see them as often. It felt good having a family to count on, especially now that they considered me one of them. Dinner was nice. The food was good. We all drank, laughed, and enjoyed each other's company. James seemed happy. Every time he looked at me, he smiled with genuine love. He always loved seeing me get along with his family. After dessert, James looked at me and asked, "Did you bring it?" He was asking about the keychain he bought for his brother. Ever since they were kids, every place they visited, they would buy a themed keychain and gift each other. It was kind of a competition and tradition. After they grew up, they started taking it even more seriously since they traveled alone to different places and saw who could get more keychains. Even if it was a very busy and serious work trip, James would go out of his way to buy a keychain for his brother. They made bets based on who could gift more during the year. The week before, James went to Los Angeles and bought a Venice Beach keychain, but forgot to take it before he left home. In the morning, he texted me and asked me to bring it to dinner since I left after him every day and he wouldn't be able to go home and get it. I told him it was in my purse without thinking much about it. He got up from his seat as his parents entertained themselves with his brother's story. I don't even remember what it was about. I noticed James was taking a long time to bring back the keychain. I wondered if something was wrong, but I still hadn't connected the dots. At that same moment, my cell phone buzzed with a message from John. I blocked the screen and put the phone in my lap. I sighed, imagining my husband reading those texts. He came back to the dining room, popping his eyes. James seemed angry. He put something in his pocket, got the keychain in one hand, and sat down. James didn't even glare at me. "Travel to Leha," he said as he handed it to his brother, who laughed at it like a private joke. "Did you really have to get me one that reminds me of my ex from college in California?" His brother pretended to be hurt, but in seconds laughed it off with James. My brother-in-law took a large sip of wine and talked again. That god and actress broke my heart. James looked at me after his brother complained. I pretended to laugh too and just turned his gaze away again. "What did she even do to you?" "I don't remember," James asked with a devilish smile on his face. I saw my brother-in-law twitch, having the memories back. She played an extra on a TV show and slept with the main actor. Again with this story, he even made us watch the damn show with the actor, their father said, laughing with them. James looked like he was having the time of his life when he suddenly said something I couldn't believe I heard correctly. "Just like my wife," he said. I looked at him confused. His family had a strange, nervous laugh, thinking he was kidding. Language, James, his mom said, as if she was also kidding, but she just wanted him to stop talking. But she is. My wife is a cheater, he said again like it was nothing. We were all looking at him like he was having a stroke. James, what? I asked, terrified. He put his hand in his pocket, took out the theater ticket, placed it on the table, and unlocked his phone screen to show a website. It had the same color as the tickets, and I read cast and collaborator. The first name written there was John's first and last name. I was silent. I just stared at the paper with that same date on it. Tell me, Emily, did you screw your ex? He asked, and the other three at the table gasped. They didn't believe it was happening either. I felt a wave of shame wash over me. I never meant to hurt you, I said, tears streaming down my face. I don't know why I did it. I felt lost. Lost? James repeated, his voice rising. So you thought sleeping with another man would help you find your way? You have any idea what you've done? I could see the pain in his eyes, and it broke my heart. I wanted to take it all back to undo the damage I had caused, but I knew it was too late. I'm so sorry, James, I sobbed. I didn't think. He shook his head, tears filling his own eyes. I thought you loved me, he said quietly. I thought we were building a life together. I do love you, I insisted, but the words felt hollow. How could I claim to love him when I betrayed him so completely? James took a deep breath, wiping his eyes. I need some time to think, he said finally. I can't do this right now. I watched him walk away, feeling more alone than ever. I heard his steps on the stairs, which meant he was staying with his parents, which meant I was supposed to go home alone immediately. I had destroyed the one good thing in my life, and for what? A few moments of excitement with a man who could never give me what James had. I got up from the chair with my face still wet from tears. I said goodbye to his family, and I couldn't tell if they were disgusted or pitied me. I got my purse, my keys, and left almost running through the front door. I tried not to vomit, but was only able to hold it until I was a few houses down the street. I literally made myself sick. I couldn't believe I was able to screw up my life because of John again. Not even because of John, because of me. I literally went after him looking for trouble, since my marriage was just too boring without a disaster in it. I spent countless hours replaying everything in my mind, trying to understand why I had sabotaged my own happiness. I realized that my chaotic upbringing had left me with deep-seated issues, but understanding them didn't make the pain any easier to bear. Update. Hello, this is Emily. I'm here to give you an update on my story about my husband finding out I was cheating on him with my ex-boyfriend through a theater ticket. Remember me? Well, there isn't really much to be said. After I got humiliated in front of James' family, it's hard to imagine he'd forgive me. Eventually, James and I sat down to talk. He told me that he needed time to heal and that he wasn't sure if he could ever trust me again. I couldn't blame him. I had shattered his trust, and it would take a miracle to rebuild it. In the end, we decided to separate. James deserved someone who could love him fully and faithfully, and I needed to figure out how to break the cycle of chaos in my life. James couldn't trust me ever again and didn't hesitate to file for divorce. It was the hardest decision we've ever made, but I guess it was the right one. Looking back, I realized that I have a lot of work to do on myself. I need to learn how to love in a healthy way to build relationships based on trust and respect. It's a long road ahead, but I hope that one day I'll be able to find peace and maybe even redemption. For now, I'm taking things one day at a time, trying to heal from the mess I've made. It's not easy, but it's the only way forward. And maybe, just maybe, I'll learn to stop bringing chaos into the lives of the people I care about.